Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Chat on Sunday. Sorry we're a little late. We had some issues on my end with my wire that kind of just clicked off at some point, and then sound stuff. So we're here now, and we're so happy to be here. So I want to introduce my guest today. We are going to be chatting with Rob Falgiano. Rob is a musician, a writer, and a spiritual seeker and all around great guy. We're going to be talking about his new book, Life is Magic. So welcome, Rob.
Thanks, Kim. It's great to see you again. Hi, can you hear me okay?
It's good. It's good. And a lot of people might recognize your name from the chat because you're usually in the chat.
Yeah, I talk a lot.
No, I love it. And I think everybody appreciates, I think it's nice to see those familiar names and, hearing from everybody. It really does give a sense of community, even though we're in totally different places around the world and around the country. And I really love it. So I appreciate your participation.
Oh, thank you. I love to participate, and I agree with you. It does. It does feel like community. Sometimes you can feel the energy ramping up.
I totally agree with you. So we're going to be talking about your new book. Before we get into it, I want to ask you first, you had one book before this, God Laughs at Dirty Jokes, right? And then then you're having this book, and then there's going to be a sequel too, another book after this one. What is your process for writing, and how long did it take you to write this book?
Wow. Let's see. I go on and off really hard with writing. Like, I think this book started with some notes maybe 5 years ago. The new one did. And then, like, I kind of had chapters laid out, and I kept writing and writing. And that's why I think there's going to be a second part. I mean, I hope there's going to be a second part, because I wrote so much that I had at least 2 books worth, and it was too much. It was ridiculous. And I got to a point where I finally said I have to have a cutoff point, because my brain is going to explode. This is ridiculous. So I would say I worked on it a lot over the last 3 years, especially. But it's like a really hard on-off switch for me, because I've songs for years, and I've said this before. Songs are easy by comparison because they're short and they're tight, and you get a 3, 4, 5 minute thing and you put it to bed. But writing a book is like trying to keep that narrative consistent and the tone consistent and have it actually make sense chapter to chapter, and especially when you're talking about stuff that is way in outer space, like right. I'm trying to do. So now that the book is done, I haven't thought about writing the next one at all. I haven't looked at it at all, though it crossed my mind last week.
Yeah.
To look at the layout and see how much work it's going to be.
It does seem like so much work. It seems like one of the hardest things to do is writing a book. And anybody I've talked to who's done it they do, they're kind of like, it is a really, a very, a process that kind of drowns you for a little while because it's so all encompassing, right?
Yeah, it's pretty intense. I remember there was one, like, my job is it's not a seasonal job, but it's busiest like in the fall through the beginning of December, and then from like February to the top of May. And I remember taking this 1 month where like all my spare time was rereading and reviewing and trying to make sure that the narrative flowed through. So yeah, it's kind of intense. I mean, I'm a single person with no children in my early 50s, and that's probably the only reason I could do it.
It is. It seems like a really, really, a process for sure. And so I wanted to get into a little bit about you in case there are people that don't know anything about you. So I kind of wanted you to just talk a little bit about the beginning of kind of your own spiritual journey, where it kind of began for you, because you started out as an atheist, right?
Yeah, both books kind of start the same way with this introduction to this uh, supernatural experience I had that was in 1996. So I was 1997. Anyway, I was 25, 26 years old, and I was hardcore agnostic at the very least. I did not believe in God, but I think I was open-minded. I was a creative, open-minded person, and trying to be. And I I had an episode where when I was at home alone one time, and I was wondering about whether there somehow could be an afterlife. I kind of asked myself the question rhetorically, like, is there really a God, or is there really an afterlife? And I've described this event before. I heard / felt the name Justin, which was my mom's second born son, who died just after childbirth in 1974. And I heard and felt his name, and then I had the sensation of being like tickled all over my body, like somebody playfully tickling me. And I fell off the couch because I was laughing so hard. And I say this in the book, and it's really true. The joy and love that I felt was like so indescribable that I've only had a couple like other instances in my life since then that like get close, but it was so strong that it left no doubt, like that there was all this love behind it all, This presence stayed with me for about an hour and a half as I went about my afternoon. I was getting tickled in my shower. And I had to say, okay, take a break. Like, it was amazing. It made me cry, tears of joy. And I didn't immediately like just become religious or anything like that. It just sort of percolated back there. And then it was the opening door. And then it seemed like my mom and my brother, Steve, who is, so then my mom's third son, still living. And we all started to kind of, it's like our switch got flipped on at the same time. So then we started to sync up more. And a lot of the book is about those synchronicities and the way we seem to be tied in. And it even just happened this week. We had the one this week. This is kind of random. I'll try to keep the story brief if you want to hear it. So I've been in lots of bands over the years, and in the 90s, I was in this Buffalo band called Plaster Sandals, which was a joke about the cement shoes that the mafia gives you in the ocean. So, Plaster Sandals. And there was a local music store that sponsored a Christmas CD. So they got all the local bands to record Christmas songs, and we did one too. And then they sold the CD. Of course, back when CDs were something people actually bought, they sold the CD at their store, and they gave, I think, the proceeds to charity. And so this is like back in the mid 90s. And there's a local guy who kind of archives a lot of the Buffalo music around here. His name is Dave Lazinski. He's a great guy. So he has like ripped all of the old CDs from Buffalo, like from the 80s onward. So if you go, You still there?
Yeah, you just popped out just for a second.
Oh, that's
You're
funny
good.
because
You're good.
okay, you conked out for a second on my end. So
It was
Mercury
one of us.
Mercury retrograde. So there's a guy who has been storing all the music from Buffalo from the 80s, like on YouTube, the Buffalo Music Archive, if you're interested. So there's a Christmas CD called That Christmas CD, and it's got a big buffalo on the cover with Christmas lights wrapped around it, since I live in New York. And anyway, I got an email from Ireland this week from a man who said that his 11-year-old son, who is autistic, is obsessed with the CD and listens to it all the time on YouTube,
Oh,
and
wow.
tracked me down, and he wondered if like there were any physical copies of the CD anywhere left in existence.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know if I had one or not, but I did. So I
Oh,
mailed it to him this week. I think it was maybe Wednesday. And I put a bunch of my other CDs in there because nobody buys CDs anymore. But here's the kicker. The very day that I got the email from the guy in Ireland about his son loving the CD, my mom sent me a picture of the CD because she was playing it in her car that day.
how weird. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
we call that a ding ding. That's a that's synchronicity. That's when the mysterious connectivity is in action and it hits and you get to see it in real time. And if you acknowledge it, then you acknowledge the connectivity.
That is so interesting. And I going back to the story about your brother coming in and how it kind of lit up the whole family in a way,
Yeah.
that connection with all of you. We had the same thing uh, a long time ago when my after my dad had passed, my sister said, I think dad is sending me dimes. She's like, it's so weird. I keep finding him in weird places and weird that. And after she said that, she told me, and I started finding dimes. And then the next person we told, they started finding dimes, and not normal places, like in
Yeah.
our shoes and
Yeah.
at weird times and things like that. So you're right. There can be this kind of, it's like they need to find an opening, and once they find the opening, it's like boom, they found it, and they use it to the fullest that they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a dime story too. It might be in the book, but a guy that I met a couple years ago who sold me my second last truck um, at a dealership. I had a bunch of synchronicities with him and his wife because he told me that his wife was into spirituality. So I gave him my first book, and they came to see me perform to sing at a bar in Niagara Falls. And he told me all these stories about all these dimes and also about how he and his wife got together and like how he saw like a vision of them getting together and all this stuff. And then when they left, I went outside on my set break and there was a dime on the patio.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that interesting? It's so fascinating to me that, yeah, that interconnectivity that's just, it's there. And
Yeah.
again, they take the opportunity to show it, to make you see it. Um,
Did,
so,
did oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Did your whole family, so your whole family got in on the dimes?
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the weirdest ones was my daughter had been asking for a dime from my dad, and he passed when she was only a year old, so she never knew him really, but she feels close to him just from her spiritual background and talking to him all these years. And so she was asking for a dime, and she had just returned to the UK, and she thought, well, the chances of her finding a dime in the UK is not really a thing. So she's like, but she asked anyway. And one day, they were using the washer, and it stopped working. And so her husband went in and started tinkering around and said, I cannot figure out what's going on with the washer. So he starts messing around and taking bits out and things like that. And he comes into the room and he holds up a dime. And he's like, this was it. This was what was messing it up. He's like,
Wow.
there's your dime, Cassie. Isn't
Wow.
that crazy? So
That's
how do
that's
they do
that
these things? I don't know.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
in the book, I want to get back to your book because I know because there's just a lot of there's a lot to cover in this, but I know we won't get to all of it. So I do hope that people read it. It's right. I have my copy right here. It's a great size, by the way. I like this like little kind of compact size. I love that.
Yeah, that was very intentional. Pocketbook.
It is. It's exactly. It's because I've taken it many places. It's going to be dog-eared pretty soon, but I've taken it all over the place. So, but we begin kind of to get a glimpse of your musical connection in the book around chapter 2. I think you start talking more about music, and the very beginning. So we kind of get a glimpse of that in the very beginning. So, what is your connection to music, and what spiritual part do you think music plays both here and in the spirit realm?
Wow.
Just a tiny little question there for you.
It's a great question. It's an awesome question. Thank you for asking it. For me, when I was younger, I wouldn't have necessarily thought of this way when I was more, agnostic. Now I think of myself as spiritual, not religious, spiritual. But I would describe my reaction to music once I really got into it in high school as being like religious, and there were pieces of music that I came across and still come across that make me shiver like head to toe, just like, whew, I'm getting it kind of now even talking about it.
Yeah.
And the vibrations of music, they resonate like, there's so many answers to this question. I don't know how to give the best one, but like music actually resonates like through our bodies, right? Mm-hmm. So when you hear a song, like I feel like I pick up on sincerity in music. That's my big thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a judgmental thing too, I guess. Like if I feel like a song is insincere, it's weird. It like turns me off and I have to turn away, off. But when I come across music that feels to me like it came from like some kind of like deep, soulful, really heartfelt place, like regardless of any kind of commercial aspect or concern, feel like you can hear it, you can feel it. Or when you see someone perform like that, and it's one of the ways, it's a language, it's one of the ways we communicate and express like what it is to be human and all of the things that we see and feel and experience and go through. And like a great song can just remind you of aspects of yourself that you've forgotten. It can make you think about aspects of yourself you've never thought about before. It's so deep. For me, it's so deep. Other people, it can be wallpaper. I know, cultural wallpaper. Some people don't resonate with music that way, but for me, it's like I feel those vibrations like just right to my core, and so much so, especially since COVID, I have a sleep playlist that I use all the time, and it's something about this particular group that I really like. That it's kind of this ambient jazz influenced slow music that just seems to like put me in a trance, and that helps me sleep. So I remember recently Sterling on his channel said something about, somebody asked him like if aliens listen to music, and his answer was that they use it more for like healing purposes. Like recreational listening. And I we don't know if that's true, but there's a part of that makes sense to me. Like when I'm mixing so many things here, but when I go for a massage sometimes, my friend Molly will use those singing bowls in the room. And sometimes she'll actually put the bowl like right on your body and then do the thing, and then you feel those vibrations through your body, and you are changed, like you are physically affected. So sound is a big thing. Like, yeah, I feel like sound is the most powerful art form. I'm biased, but
I think so too, and I may be biased as well, but it's interesting. One thing that came to mind when you said that you're attracted to sincerity. I'm not a huge like country western fan, but what one voice that comes to mind is Willie Nelson. That
oh yeah,
it's not a perfect voice. It's not a this big voice, but it's so sincere. There's something that just makes me want to cry whenever I hear any song that he does, because it just is so, like you said, there's a sincerity and honesty there that's just so beautiful. So I completely agree with you, and I agree too with the kind of insincerity as well. I'm kind of like, meh, I could do without her. It just doesn't dig deep like the way something like that does. So I totally agree with that. And the other thing that came to mind was that in so many, almost all, but so many NDE, near death experiences, they talk about music, and they talk about music coming from flowers and music coming from trees, and kind of that and it is a vibration, a resonance, but they talk about it, almost all of it is kind of singing praise to creation, to itself, basically. And again, yeah, I get chills too. That resonates so much with me, because I think that there's something to that everything does have this vibration. When we talk about things resonating with us, it's literal. It's literally, there's something in the vibration of it, or the words vibration or whatever, that literally is resonating with us. So those are the things that came to mind when you were talking about this, is that those stories of the NDEers.
yeah, that's awesome. That reminds me of so many things. Everything you said, I agree with 100%. It reminds me of when you were talking about your, I think it was a past life regression hypnosis with Dave Johnson, and you talked about having experiences like being a flower,
Mm-hmm.
and when you merged with the sun, and you didn't want to, and
The stars, yeah, yeah.
and your guides are like, it's time to not be a part of the star anymore. Thought, yeah, that was so awesome. Like, I feel like really in tune with animals and with nature too. Like, I feed the birds and squirrels every day here, and I got a squirrel crew that, like, they come, if I don't feed them, they're on my screen window. you
I've
know,
seen them. I know that's true. I've seen
you
them.
know, and Jackie the squirrel was here today while I was writing.
Oh,
Like, and it's so true. And everything, like, they know atomically, everything is vibrations. We are vibrations. All our atoms are vibrations. So yeah, everything is interacting vibrations, and that's why the sound is so powerful, like you said. I
right,
think
right.
I need to get a reading with Dave. It sounded kind of awesome.
I was that was going to be one of my questions, is if you ever have had a past life regression or a quantum healing session, because it was one of the weirdest experiences I ever had. And I was
That's
kind of not really skeptical of it, but I was just kind of like, will I get anything, or will anything come out, or that I haven't thought about, or that's brand new? And man, was I mean, just completely blown away. I was not expecting what came out at all. And to me, that lends validity to it too, because it was just not things that I had ever, yeah, just never really thought about. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking now how you said that in a past incarnation, Cassie, your daughter, was your grandmother, right?
yes.
Yeah. What was that like when you heard that, did you kind of like, did you remember some of it?
It's so weird because the main thing I remember is that he said, you know, look, we were sitting kind of across the table from each other, and he said, look into her eyes. Do you recognize her? And I looked, and it was just clearly Cassie. And I said, oh, it's Cassie. It was just the weirdest thing, and I was just like, oh yeah, you know, that's right. So that also tells me too, there is something to the eyes, that the eyes really, there is something to them being connected to the soul or our soul journey, or it gives more information or something. Because it was just so obvious and so clear in that moment. I don't think it is, you know, in this, you know, 3D reality thing that is here. I don't think it's as obvious to us, but in that moment, it was just like, oh yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, that's Cassie. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it was weird. It was awesome, but it was also, you know, though, the people, because I know that in your book you talk about the deep connection you have with your family, with your mom and your brother, and your brother who is on the other side. That there is this weird, really deep connection with you guys, and so and where do you think that, um, have you always noticed that or known that, or since you've been becoming more kind of spiritually evolved, have you noticed it more and realized it more?
Um, we were always pretty tight, my mom, my brother, and I, when when my brother and I were kids, because my parents split in 1980, and I was 10, and my brother Steve was 4, and like, my mom, she's a tough cookie. She's a tough Italian cookie, tough 5 foot tall, nothing 5 foot nothing cookie, and um, like it's a combination of like no nonsense and also allowing me to really discover myself. And she did that with my brother too. So like we like had a very kind of permissive upbringing, and so we were wacky. Like my brother and I made my brother sing like terrible songs that I wrote, like for fun, like joke songs that were about stupid things and fun things, and like being I was a teenager and he was, you know, 7, and I'm making him sing like a song about hot grandmothers, like like super inappropriate subject matter, like, and a lot of my a lot of my life, oops, a lot of my life has been very inappropriate, humor. So, but we were tight. But when Justin sort of entered the picture, our brother on the other side, then that was another dimension for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because my brother Steve got visits from Justin pretty consistently for about 20 years. Now, those have trailed off in the last few years, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
know why, but I'm going to do a little more digging on that, either with some psychic readers or some other way. But it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like maybe doing some other things now, but that we are all tied. And I remember you gave me a reading a few years ago where you said that all of us had a shared spirit guide, like everybody in my family had a shared spirit guide, and that was kind of unusual, which is interesting to
Mm-hmm.
me. And I think it must be true because we're kind of chipped off the same block of like attitude and humor, and we get ourselves in trouble sometimes because we shoot from the hip. I'm an Italian Pisces. I mean, like
Right.
that's,
So
that's deadly, you know. But to answer also your previous question, I think that a past life regression is where I'm headed, maybe one or two, because I have a feeling that that's how I will tie up the next book.
I think that would be so fascinating. I would love to see what comes out from you, because Dave just was like, I want to see what happens with if I, what would come out from you because of just what you do and stuff. And it was really weird. And, and I don't know if
What
I
did
was
you
prepared
see?
for it or not. I always tell people, make sure you're prepared, because it's going to be different. It's very, very different. I wanted to bring in the chat a little bit here. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us today. Kelly Bach said, I had a session with him and he is wonderful. And yeah, he does. He records it so you can go back and watch it. And he tells you to go back and watch it 3 times. And I think it is to jog your memory, because for me, I remembered some stuff, but not everything. And the more I watched it, the more I remembered. So I think that's wise to bring it back.
Very cool.
And Nellie Leonard says, Rob has a really interesting channel. That's right. I didn't mention your YouTube channel, Rob Falgiano.
Thanks.
I love his squirrels too, and his cat, and his talks about his dreams and his books. Thank you for inviting him. You're so welcome. I know that I love your talk when you talk about your dreams, because they are just so
Weird.
detailed. They're weird, but they're so detailed. You remember so much detail. And I know that in the book you talk, what you say that you talked to a psychic that told you that she thought you were kind of a psychic dreamer, and you got information in your dreams. And I felt like I think I don't know if I told you in an email one time that I felt like you were skipping dimensions or something in your dreams. You were like dimension traveling in your dreams. But what do you make of them? And how do you use the information you get?
Wow. I think you're right on that. Can you hear me, by the way? Because I just plugged in my phone for charging.
Yeah, we can hear you. It's there's like a little bit of static, but I think it is what it is.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll come
over. No,
it's okay. Wow, skipping dimensions. That makes so much sense. I mean, because sometimes I feel like I'm away. I feel like I have been just elsewhere. And I dream about things being created all the time. I had a dream like that last night. And as you say, I'm glad you find the dreams interesting, because sometimes I think I'm just rattling on and on. And
no, they're fascinating.
That I must sound insane, and there's not that I'm wasting people's time, which I don't want to do. So, no. But last night I had a dream that I was writing a long song, a 20-minute song, and it was kind of coming right from my brain, right into like a computer that was recording it. And the song was so emotional, and it had like these incredible highs, these like expressions of like pure joy and love. And then it had like almost like sections of just like wailing and such sadness. And it was a bit otherworldly, the song was. And it was like, and someone says to me in the dream, "Oh, you've never written anything like that before. Like, that's different." And I've been I've had this concept in mind, like I've been wondering if I can imitate this band that I love without copying them.
Right.
A band from Britain called Talk Talk. They don't exist anymore. Their last couple records are these trippy, long songs that help me sleep. And I've been wondering if I can get closer to that with some future music of my own. But in the dream, like the song was just like so epic, and like it was so emotional, and it was moving people, but it was moving people in a really unusual way, like a new way. Like it was like discovering a new way to like make music almost. I don't know. It was really pretty intense.
How
Um,
interesting. There,
so
it reminds me again of one NDEer that I heard that said that after hearing the music on the other side, she can't
mm,
listen to music here anymore
oh
because
wow,
it's such a cheap imitation. But she's kind of like, but that's interesting though, because in your dream you were kind of tapping into something that almost didn't seem like it was here yet or didn't exist yet or in that form yet. So that's very interesting that, and again, gives, lends some validity that you may be traveling more than you think,
I think
Um,
I really do think I am. I don't want to like just like be like, hey, look at me. I I skip dimensions in my dreams, but I kind of think I do.
I think you do. And but I think the difference is maybe that you remember. I think maybe a lot of us do it, and
Yes,
we just don't have the memory, or we don't take the memories back with us, but maybe that is one of your gifts, is that you can remember.
yes, I think that's exactly right. I think that everybody could do it. Um, and funny that you mentioned sleep because I'm tangenting. I'm on a tangent because I'm always on a tangent. Um, I've been conducting prayer experiments with my family and a couple of friends, praying for people to sleep better, and
Oh,
they seem to be working a bit. You know, not every single night, but like when I go to bed, like intently praying for other people to sleep well, like my mom and my brother especially, and my
uh-huh.
friends Diane and Fran. Hi, Diane and Fran. And, um, like and putting out that energy, and to have people come back and say, yeah, I did, I slept better, is like another like kind of testament to like the power of like our thoughts and
Mhm,
prayer are very similar things, if not the same thing.
mhm.
And regarding dreaming, yeah, I do think people could, if they don't really remember their dreams, maybe if they just slept a little better,
Yeah.
like they would, whatever it takes to like sort of wind down into that the calmness, the quietness of sleep. Actually, I have one viewer, Kat, who uses my talks, my videos about dreaming, to help her sleep. She's
Really? Oh, how interesting.
call that like ASMR
Uh-huh.
videos. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's like if you look up ASMR, there are some people who do videos where like they talk in a very calming voice, and
Uh-huh.
they set a mood, and they might even do some stuff with crystals or whatever else. And people, I guess some people listen to these videos and it helps them to sleep. And I'm not remotely insulted that Cat uses my dream videos to sleep. That's to me that's like totally awesome because
That is great. And I can see how that would be true, because I love your channel because it is very calming, very soothing. You feel like you're kind of in the living room with you. It's really cool. It's really, really very intimate the way that you do it. I think it's really neat.
thank you.
Um,
Did
yeah.
I
And so
did I, did I
go
answer
ahead.
all the questions? Were there other questions in
I
there?
know, I think you did. I think you did, because, and I wanted to ask you about, it kind of goes into a question I wanted to ask you about, again, about dreams, but about visitation dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so one of my things that I get quite often is visitation dreams. And when I first used to get them, this was years and years ago, I first used to get them in the dream. There's always a point in the dream when I realize, oh, there's my aunt, whoever passed away. And I will be, as soon as I realize it, I will be overcome with emotion and crying and hugging them and just being like, well, oh, I'm so happy to see you. We've missed you so much, and etc. And they are very not not dismissive, but very just like, oh yeah, hi, how are you? Not very unemotional, basically, very happy and very pleased to see me, but unemotional. And as I've gone through the years, and particularly as I've done this work, when I have a visitation dream now, I kind of have the same reaction. More, oh, here you are. What are you doing here? How are you? That more subdued, a more subdued reaction. I think part of it is being more aware that, oh yeah, we go on. This is just temporary, and that's our home. I think that realizing that and knowing that more. But also, I think that, and maybe this is where the question is, that the resonance that we're at when someone passes because they don't have their physical body, we can't perceive them in the way we did here. So if we just moved a little bit, like if we just raised kind of here, we would be able to perceive them completely. And in their dreams, we're able to kind of do that. And so in a way, the old dreams that I had where I was freaking out, they were kind of acting like, it's kind of like going from room to room, like, oh, you were in the living room and now you're in the family room. Why are you? It's like a big thing. But for them, it's like, yeah, I'm in the family room. Yeah, that's right. So, but I feel like it's that kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot. We just go here and then we perceive everything. It's all there. You can do it in meditation, but is that the way you understand it? Is that it's just a matter of perception and our vibrational whatever patterns or waves or whatever, however, yeah. Is that what it is?
So. I think so. That sounds so spot on. I'm really glad that you explained that too, because I remember you talking about that, and like I was wondering kind of why they weren't as emotional as you were. Like, but now that you explain it, it makes total sense.
And that's a new understanding for me, because I didn't understand it either. I was kind of like, why? It's so weird that I'm so emotional, and they're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, like, hey,
you know?
I see you all the time. I mean, maybe for them, they do see us all the time, and so
Yeah, exactly.
not really gone the way they seem to be gone to us.
Right.
To answer your question, I think absolutely, intuitively, I feel absolutely, and also it matches anything I've ever heard any psychic say about like what they do. And I'm specifically thinking of my brother Steve's visits from our brother Justin on the other side, because Steve has talked about like feeling like he's going up, like elevated. And I feel like what they do is maybe they come down a little. They come down and we go up a little, and we meet at an appropriate matching vibration. And that's where you can communicate. So like someone like yourself, I think that's what you're doing. I mean, that's my sense of it. Do you agree?
I do, absolutely. Because I think it partly ties into free will, that there has to be that intention and that will on our part to move up, and their will and their intention to move down, to make that connection, that it has to do with free will as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of that vibrational stuff comes from like how we live. I've said a bunch of times, like my brother Steve is kind of like the most loving human being I've ever met. And he's so just naturally good that I just think he vibrates higher, like just by existing. So I don't think I vibrate as high. I think I am a flawed person who is trying to be a better person all the time, and I know that the rewards are inherent, like because you get back more of that vibration that you live and embody. So there was another question in there that asked that I really liked and wanted to answer. Let's see, about levels. Oh yes, I do think that maybe part of what's going on, like everything from like lots of different angles of view, like whether it's astrology or religious belief, it seems like we're like experiencing this incredible dynamic shift. Like Earth is going through a thing.
Right.
Not least to mention the way the technology is changing everything and changing everything so fast. We are in a period of massive disruption. So we forget maybe day to day, like this is super challenging. I mean, I'm sure there have been other super challenging eras on Earth, but this one's like really challenging, and like I feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Day I go from high as high to the lowest low in the same day, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
geez, get me off this thing. But not really. I want to be here for it. But I hope that, yeah, I have a. That's why it's like there's so much tension because it's kind of like, yeah, if it's true that there have been generations of light workers that have been coming here to make this place better, well, there's the opposite of that, and they don't necessarily want that. So hopefully we win.
Well, and I'm glad you're bringing this up because that I did want to get into a couple of just world questions with you because I love hearing what you have to say about these things. But um, so at different points in your book, you acknowledge kind of your own ego in relation to like your creativity, in relation to money, things like just earthly things that we all get, caught up into, or, have our, our, the way that we think things are, that, we kind of live our own, what we think is right. And, but do you believe, what part do you think ego is playing in the world right now? And do you believe that we're slowly moving beyond ego to a higher consciousness?
I sure hope so. Um, I think the answer is yes, but it's just happening slowly,
Right.
painfully
Person
slow.
by person to person by person. I mean, it really is like
Yeah,
individual by individual, right?
yeah, it's like painfully slowly,
Yeah.
and we don't always think that it's happening. But then in day to day, you do meet good people. You do meet. You do have a person that brightens your day, and if you can be that person, all the better. Um, Ego is, yeah. I mean, I have a big ego, and I always struggle with like this whole idea of becoming your true self, like, right, and expressing your truth and all this stuff, and then like when that's just like, geez, will you shut up? you know. So this fine line between becoming your true self and then like being obnoxious. Um, I don't always succeed in not being obnoxious, um, but um, there is one of the things that I think is going on in the world right now is okay, at least in the U.S. I always attribute it to Reagan. It's
Uh,
like 1980 is like the beginning of like Carter wanted to be like, let's conserve, let's be responsible citizens of the globe,
yeah.
and let's lead, the world in energy conservation and protecting the environment. And then Reagan came along and was like,
Took the solar
but
panels off the White House and, yeah.
yeah, and like that was like it set us on a trajectory where the wealth inequality has grown so great now that there are too many people with too much money and therefore too much power at the top, and it's corrupting all kinds of systems. It is corrupting our democracy. It's corrupting democracies globally, um, and we have to pull that all back. Like so, like ego out of control is just like when you have everything and you still want more, and like your hunger is endless, and you're feeding you're feeding an emptiness. You know, we know who we know who we're talking about now.
Well, and
You know?
you look at but though you look at the billionaires we know, the people that have the most of whatever, the most power, they seem like the most miserable people on earth. So it is, to me, that is just proof that whatever they're looking for, it isn't there, and yet they can't stop. Just, they are just so sure that at some point it's going to fill that hole in the soul, and it's not going to.
Boy, that's so spot on. Yeah. Well, or they're hoping just to like kind of get the temporary hit, like an addict.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, but that's what it is. It's an addiction, and yeah, it's not sustainable. So, I really do have a lot of faith that like the next election is going to be good. That
Mm-hmm.
that Biden will win, and that the Democrats will actually take all of Congress, and we're gonna like, because I think it's gonna be the women who are gonna shock the Republicans this next election.
I think so too, Rob. I really do.
It feels like it's bubbling so hot,
Right.
and I'm not a woman in it, and I'm mad. You know, it infuriates me. The Texas stuff, you
Yeah.
know, with that woman, like it's inhumane and it's authoritarian and it's about control. It's never about religion. It's abusing religion for
Right.
personal power and enrichment. It's disgusting.
Right.
It
Right.
thickens. So
I agree. I agree. And it kind of leads into one of my, I hope it's not, a downer to end on, but I did want to ask you about this. I remember that when the Ukraine war started, you either I can't remember if you emailed me or you posted it on my channel, but you'd said that it seemed like a war out of its time. It was just like, what is this? It does not seem like it belongs in this time. Um, it
yeah,
was so outdated, and I agreed. These kind of old, I call them Hitler energies. I don't know what they really are, but it is kind of that conquering energy, that really, overly masculine, like, dominant energy. Um, have you had any thoughts about the war in Israel from a spiritual perspective? Kind of along those lines as to why, because you talk about old wars, right? And
yeah.
and this one is ancient, and what is it doing now in this time period? And is this to me, it almost feels like a, a wrapping up, a kind of like, let's roll this one more time and see if there's anything else to get from this, or let's roll this one more time to see if we really do need this anymore on the earth. And because I am really amazed at how people are so against the indiscriminate bombing, regardless of side. Because I think that at different points it was always like, okay, choose a side, and
Yeah.
these things don't seem like as much like that, in just that though it's wrong. It's just a wrong thing. So I don't know. What do you think as far as a spiritual perspective from about those things?
Yeah, when that started, it was yeah, that too felt completely out of like left field. And then, but then the more I kind of researched it and read about it, it seemed like I read multiple things that it probably or possibly was partially helped along by like people like Vladimir and other autocrats, like that their plan is disruption, more disruption,
Yeah.
so that they would like people to turn away from democratic values,
Mm-hmm.
and it's awful. It's I can't even believe Ukraine is still going on. Really, I mean, But leaving that aside, God willing, the Ukrainians will win and there'll be some kind of peace really soon.
Right.
It's really hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so hard to just keep hearing about it and seeing it. I mean, thank God we don't have to experience it firsthand, but they are. Yeah, and my reading of like Israel and Palestine and stuff, like I was reading about stuff about how this goes back to like the Ottoman Empire, where those people cohabitated in that region, they mixed, and it predates World War One, like for like
Mm-hmm.
400 years. A lot of those people, like they all lived in the same region, but then the creation of the state of Israel brings it to like a head. Um, the best way I think I can answer your question is I read an article by an Israeli soldier who was in a previous conflict, I think, or not an all-out war, but served in the Israeli military, and the person just said there's just no way to win this militarily. Like you can't exterminate a concept. you
Mm-hmm.
can't you can't kill like you can't just kill an infinite number of people and think that you're going to wipe out Hamas because it's the idea. So he just said the only solution is for both sides to essentially suck up their grievances and come to some kind of peace, lasting
Right.
peace. I
Right.
know that's like that's a very obvious answer, but like Israel won't be able to wipe out Hamas. That's not a real thing. The Hamas attack on Israel was just awful, awful, beyond disgusting, terrible. The hostages, awful, just terrible, beyond disgusting.
Right.
So they have to lay down grievance.
Right.
We every lay down grievance um, with whatever the personal issues are at some point, because you can't hold on to grievance. It's destructive.
Right. It's so interesting how it does. They keep talking about 9/11 and our way overreaction to what happened, even though it was horrible and awful. The reaction was it devastated just even more millions of people and displaced people. And I mean, and to what end? To what end? And so yeah, I agree with you. It's oh, more horrible doesn't erase the horrible. And yet it seems like it is kind of a repeat of our experience with 9/11. I think that's why Biden has been so trying really hard to get them to see you don't want to do this. You don't want to go down this road as much as you're passionate and you feel so angry and indignant and people are angry, which they should be, but you don't want to go down this road. And yeah, I totally agree with you. And being able to be strong enough, I think, to lay down your grievances and for the sake of peace and for people being able to live peacefully. I think you're right. So Rob,
That
just go ahead.
Matt, yeah, Biden is totally the right person for this moment. And so many of the moments of the last 4 years, like I'm all on Biden. Like, I mean, there's no perfect leadership, but he's
Right.
he's very empathetic and sensitive to like what's going on. And yeah, I'm so glad he's there. And regarding just like that region and in general, I pray all the time about it, and I'm always envisioning like wrapping things in light and wrapping the whole world in light. And I had a weird idea like when I was going to sleep last night. I was kind of like asking like the angels to like set up all these like generators like around the Earth in outer space, and just like plug them right down into Earth and like bore into the center of the Earth and pump light out from the center of the Earth all the way as far as it could go. I was like, bring in the generators, like
Yeah.
bring in the big guns, bring in Like, let's do big. Like, let's go big. And I don't know. That couldn't just me doing my thing for my own sake, but it makes me feel better. I sure hope it helps.
Yeah, and I think it does. I think it does. And I think it does because we're all connected. And I think that when we have horrible things like that are going on right now with these wars, as an individual, they still, you feel those energies. You feel them as you read about the things, as you see them come over your TV, or as they just come upon you, you feel them. And I think that the opposite is true too. When something is good, or when you're deliberately throwing out this message, this idea, with this intention of trying to wrap the world in light or lighten up the world, I think it makes a difference. I really do, Rob. But I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you, before we end our time, if there is a message in Life is Magic, what do you hope is one thing people take away from this book when they read it?
Thank you for another great question. Um, that that love is a real thing. Like, that love is pretty much the only real reason to exist. Like, when even I look into the eyes of my cat Shay, who came, he's right here next to me, who came
Oh,
off the who came off the street and had a hard time out there, and he went from hostile and afraid to, like, his eyes are just full of love every time he looks at me.
oh,
And so, somehow behind all of this, like, this challenging world, somehow the creator, God, or whatever you want to call it, like, love is a huge part of the creator somehow. Like, it's not just random. It's not. We're not here in a hell. This isn't supposed to be a hell. Like, this isn't. We're not being punished for anything. Like,
right.
when you look into the eyes of a loved one or a loving animal, and you reciprocate and you feel love and you express love, then you know that is it. That is the exclamation point, and that it underlies all of this other stuff, and that love is a very simple thing. Like, it's it's not complicated. This world is complicated. Love is not complicated. Love is just being
Right.
really, really good to other people, especially, the ones that you're closest to, and expressing it and being open with that, and letting it show, and letting people know how important they are to you. And then, like, that's it. It's the same old message, but it's so simple. It's so simple. Everybody knows it when they feel it.
That is so true, and I love that. I'm so glad that I think that's a great message to end on, because I think that I think you're right, and I think it is so simple. I think we always overcomplicate everything. We
Yeah,
really do. And
yeah.
so, and I wanted to ask you too, because somebody was asking, is that your art behind you?
No, actually,
Oh,
this is a painting I got from my neighbor Rose, who is
oh,
our neighborhood cat rescuer, who helped catch
oh,
Jay. And Rose is in the book, and will be more in the next book too. She's a cool painter. No, I can't paint that. I can't
but you
paint.
can, because you have I was going to say, you have your drawings in your book. So
Oh,
yeah.
well, those are computer drawings that I colored in with,
Okay.
like, computer colors. That's true. There are drawings in the book, but no, I can't actually physically paint. Like,
Okay. Because they're great. I love them. So,
thank you.
um, but yeah, I love that little addition in there. That I think it's a great way to break up the book, because they're really fun to look at. So, and it shows your sense of humor as well. So
Yeah, they're pretty wacky.
yeah, yeah, they're really cool. Well,
Thanks.
thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Thanks, Deborah Day. Beautiful discussion. Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you, Rob, for hanging out with us. And check out Rob's book, Life is Magic. And Rob, where can they get it?
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Kim, for having me. You're super awesome. You are a champ. You live it. We all love you like you do.
Thank you. And I'm embarrassed. I'm not worthy. No, thank you.
You're definitely worthy. We're not worthy.
No, thank you.
You can go to robfalgiano.com, or there's a link to Amazon. It's on Amazon, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, the physical book. So at some point there'll be a Kindle, but I just haven't had a chance to do it yet.
Okay, and I'll find the links and I'll put them in the description, you guys. And I'll put also Rob's. Somebody was asking about Rob's YouTube channel, so I'll put that in the description as well. And he's reading his book on your channel, right? Reading chapters, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. If you want to just listen to the free readings, I'm going through the book. A couple chapters at a time, and I think I'm about maybe 60 or 70 pages in. So yeah, come on over to the channel and you can just check them out or just listen to the whole thing for free if you want.
Or go to sleep to it.
Yes, or go to sleep to it. If that's how it works, that's great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend, the rest of your weekend. Have a great holiday. I should be back for Christmas Eve, but thank you, everybody. Thanks, Rob. We'll talk to you again.
Take care, everybody. Have a great holiday.
Bye.
Bye.